Comic Book Savant, episode 359.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets minds free. And also, I know that I don't...
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This week, we're going to be doing a spoiler-filled review of Marvel's Netflix Punisher series, Season 1. If you haven't had a chance to watch the show yet, I'm giving you a chance to pause the podcast, you put it off to the side and come back to it later after you've had a chance to watch the show. If you want to know my non-spoiler impressions of the show, you can go to youtube.com/Comic Book Savant, and I have a non-spoiler review up if you just kind of want to see if it might be something you like. I give my general impressions without diving into any spoilers at all there, so you definitely want to check that out. Also, you can always just go to comicbooksavant.com, and all the content is listed there from the YouTube channel as well as the podcast feed as well, so you can go check it out there as well. Before I get into the meat of the episode, as always, I'd love to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. You can find them over at comicspodcast.com. If you like this show, you want to find more comic book related content, is the best place you can go. It's a one-stop shop. There are literally hundreds of other podcasts listed there that are all comic book related that will fill that need for you. And the great thing about the Comics Podcast Network and why I've been a part of it for so long is that it is so many different types and styles of podcasts out there that are on comic book related content. You can find single person podcasts like myself. You can find round table discussions. You can find podcasts related to a particular publisher. You can find one on a particular character or particular teams. So it's a wide assortment of content to find there. So if you have a moment, definitely stop by the Comics Podcast Network if you have a moment. As always, the sponsor for this and every episode is my friends over at InStockTrades.com. One of the best places you can go anywhere online to find any of your bound comic book needs, be it Omnibus, Absolute Edition, Marvel Masterworks, anything of that nature, your standard trade paperbacks, you can find it over at InStockTrades.com. The great thing about InStockTrades.com is that they're a family-run business. They give great discounts and they offer a great service. I've been as a customer and them being on as a sponsor. I've been doing the show for going on 11 and a half years almost now, and I've been connected to them as a customer and a partner for probably, I guess, like 13, 14 years at this point. So it's definitely a service that I believe in. I don't just put something out there that I haven't used as a consumer. You know, I've used the service, loved it, brought them on as a sponsor, and they've been a part of the show since the very beginning. The great thing about them, they have weekly specials. If you go to InStockTrades.com on the homepage, they have deals of the week. They switch them up every week, so definitely keep checking the homepage because they'll refresh it. I want to say it's like Tuesday of every week they refresh the new specials, and they get 50% off discounts, which are awesome. They normally offer discounts ranging from 35, 42, and of course with those deals of the week you get a full 50% off. If you're a customer within the U.S., you can get free shipping for orders $50 or more. Now, the only bad thing is if you're an international customer, you don't get that free shipping, but you still get all the great deals, and you have some of the cheapest and most competitive international shipping rates around. So you still can save a ton of money, so don't let that discourage you at all. And definitely, if you do try to service, let them know that you heard about them here on the Comic Book Savant podcast. That always helps. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get into Punisher. This is the next Marvel Netflix series, and I've really been anticipating this one coming out of coming out of Daredevil season 2 to see what they were going to do with the Frank Castle character. You know, and I voiced my concerns back when I reviewed Daredevil season 2 that I wasn't 100% sold on John Bernthal necessarily as Punisher, so I was very interested to see if this show could carry itself for a full 13 episodes. I think I've even mentioned previously in talking about anticipating this show coming out that I thought maybe from the tone and the vibe of what happened in Daredevil that maybe it would have been best served by doing maybe like 8 episodes, because they didn't necessarily know the character as they introduced it to us could pull 13 episodes off. But I'm going to talk about that in a second. The breakdown for the show is as follows. After the murder of his family, Marine veteran Frank Castle becomes the vigilante known as the Punisher, with only one goal in mind: to avenge them. With his revenge now complete, Frank's wartime past comes back to haunt him. And the cast is as follows. We have John Bernthal reprising his role as Frank Castle. We have Deborah Ann Wool back as Karen Page, which we know from Daredevil, and The Defenders as well. Amber Rose Rava as Diana Madani. We have Eben Moss Beckrock, I hope I pronounced that correct, as David Lieberman. Jamie Ray Newman as Sarah Lieberman. Ben Barnes as Billy Russo. We have Paul Schultz as Rollins. We have Michael Nathanson as Sam Stein, and Daniel Weber as Lewis Walcott. And this ended up being a really good show. I take back everything I said in the past about John Bernthal not clicking with me as Punisher. I think they tweaked, they listened to feedback from Daredevil season 2 and tweaked Punisher some, and I felt like they gave John Bernthal more to play around with, and he's such a great actor. He nailed it. I mean, for me, hands down at this point, he is my definitive Punisher. Best Punisher they've had on movie, whatever. He is Punisher in my head from this point forward. I kind of like Thomas Jane's look in his Punisher movies, but you know, the best thing he ever did wasn't in the movie. It was the short they did, Dirty Laundry, that he kind of filmed separate, pushing to do another Punisher movie that was viral on YouTube, but it never took off, and they pretty much abandoned that process. And I have to say this, as much as I like Thomas Jane as a dude, and he was a diehard comic fan, I'm kind of glad they didn't, because they have the right actor now with John Bernthal. Really, like, he just brings so much layers of complexity in his portrayal of Frank Castle. He's just so believable, and it's just pitch perfect. And you can't say that all the time about certain actors playing a particular role, but it's so pitch perfect. And with the tweaks they did, it made it more believable, and just the emotion, the inner turmoil, and the loneliness, he just sells it on so many levels, and it just works. And I think, John Bernthal, has secretly, just across the board in Hollywood. I not too long ago saw Baby Driver, and just seeing him in different stuff. And it's just like, the more I see him, I think I first was introduced to John Bernthal in the Walking Dead television series as playing the character Shane. And just everything that I've seen him in, since that point, he's just gotten better and better and better and better. And he's just like, he's secretly one of the best male actors in Hollywood right now. And this show just highlights it to the umpteenth degree. I do have to preface this from the start. This is a ultra violent show. I think this show is definitely the most hardest of the hardcore of the Marvel Netflix shows. And it was some very violent parts in Daredevil season 1. The parts with the Punisher were very violent in Daredevil season 2. I think they're even ratcheted up a notch here. I think for me personally, it works, but it might not work for everyone. I don't feel like this is, torture porn or, it's bloody, it's gory. It plays directly in line with what the character is, his background, his training. It works. So it's not ultra violent for ultra violence sake. You know what I'm saying? It fits and it works with the character. And I was worried about this coming off of all the shootings and stuff that happened. And I know it was supposed to have a big presence in New York Comic Con, and it was right after the Vegas incident, and they kind of pulled it. And I was worried that maybe they would neuter the show some, but they didn't. And I'm glad they didn't, because everything they did had a purpose. It wasn't just gratuitous violence for the sake of it. And I like the fact that it's the balance where he's just not doing all this damage to individuals and he's not getting hurt. I've never seen, next to Daredevil, in the Daredevil show, I've never seen a hero take so much abuse. He took as much as he gave, and I kind of like that balance, because he's a vigilante. He's a human. He has no special powers. He doesn't have enhanced powers, even like Daredevil. He's just a man. Same bullets he uses to kill people are the same bullets they shoot back, and they can kill him. And he was on death's door quite a bit throughout the series. And I like that balance, because at any moment he could potentially die just as quickly as his prey. But I think the balance of it is what pulls him through and makes him a remarkable individual, is that his determination and his focus to complete whatever the task he puts his mind to at hand will override anything. Like he's that determined to kill you that even if it kills him, you're going with him. And I just like that. And John brings that through so well throughout the series, that really nailed it for me. Now, Deborah Ann Wall kind of reopened my eyes to her character. I like what I saw with her character in Daredevil season 1. It was kind of a mixed bag with her in Daredevil season 2, and even in the Defenders, I felt like she became kind of a naggy character. But I loved her scenes with Frank in Daredevil season 2. Her stuff with Matt and Daredevil and Froggy seems like she's kind of she seemed kind of naggy, especially in the Defenders. Her and Froggy came across as very naggy, like wagging, like, you don't be Daredevil type thing. I love the chemistry that her and John Bernthal have. I like at the same time they used her very sparingly in this series, and when they used her, it made sense, and it also served a dual purpose, is that it's connected to this bigger world, and that she's connected to the Defenders now as well as Daredevil. So you know that Frank is aware of Daredevil, due to their interactions in the previous season. So it just reminds you of that it's a part of this bigger Marvel Netflix universe, which is cool. And I love seeing her, and I hopefully in season 2 we see a little bit more of her, and because I don't know what their relationship is. Frank looks upon her as family, but is it partially romantic? It's an interesting dynamic, which could set up for very interesting storytelling in the future with Matt's history with her, and then her interesting relationship with Frank. It could make for interesting, maybe possibly love triangle if you angled it right down the road, which remains to be seen. But I really felt it was interesting, and it really showed off. Like, I kind of forgot how good an actress she was, but I just loved the scenes and the episodes that she was in, and the effect of being around Frank, what it has on her, that she's still toting that gun that he gave her, and that she knows how to use it, and she's not a damsel in distress, and she's a force on her own to be reckoned with, and her coming in her own, working in the newspaper and things like that. As far as the timeline, we do see this is about, I guess, like 6 months after Daredevil season 2. So you saw little snippets and Easter eggs from newspaper headlines that this is after the events of the Defenders, as well, which is good. You know where it kind of falls in the timeline and the continuity of the larger universe. I thought another very strong part was Frank's relationship with David Lieberman. Ebon Moss Barack, I'm not familiar with him, but they had great chemistry. He played David Lieberman, aka Micro. It was a really good. They played very well off one another. Love, hate, in the bond building throughout the show, and it was they started out kind of trying to figure each other out, and the whole cat and mouse game, and it grew and evolved as the series went on, and how Frank to try to have leverage on him, how he he showed up at his house to kind of draw him out, and then he had the storyline with Frank getting to know this guy's family, which as he's getting to know David's wife Sarah, and those things going on. It was a very cool dynamic, and it showed, it allowed Frank kind of that glimpse back into his own family, and him playing a surrogate role until he could help David clear his name and where he can go back home and be with his family. I really enjoyed that storyline throughout the season, and even though Micro's out of the game, I hope he continues to be a supporting character, and the family continues to be a supporting characters in the future of the Punisher. I think they needed to balance out all the heavy duty violence and action that goes on, that you give him. It helps him stay grounded in a certain reality, so it doesn't get too cartoonish or too comic booky. You want it to be grounded in somewhat real, some form of realism. So definitely hope to see them more in future seasons. And Sarah, she played a huge role, Sarah Lieberman, with Frank, coming to the house, where he just kind of comes to shake up David and get Micro's attention, and then inadvertently he becomes like this surrogate father and husband to her, and how she plays the role throughout was very nicely done, and it showed. And Frank being with her, maybe, he talked about his wife so much in the first and Daredevil season 2, and throughout this episode, you can kind of see that softer side of Frank, that non-Punisher side, and how he might have wooed his wife, and you see flashbacks to what kind of father he was, and how he struggled with him loving war and loving being a soldier, but loving his family, but being torn between those two worlds through the lens, and him trying to kind of correct the mistakes he felt like he made as a father, as kind of being a surrogate to help stabilize this family that was clearly in turmoil over what they thought was David's death. So there's a lot of complexity here in this show, besides a whole bunch of bombastic action and killing scenes that really surprised me, that this show was a lot deeper than what we've seen with some of the other Netflix shows. And I feel like I could say this at this point. This to me is the best Netflix show from top to bottom that they've done since Daredevil season 1. I wasn't as high on Daredevil season 2. I'll talk about this later towards the end part of the episode when I go back through and rank the Netflix shows. But it was one of the first shows that I can say in a while that, they do a 13 episode format, which is nothing wrong with that. But this was, I think, the first one that I've seen probably since Daredevil season 1 that I didn't feel like it was a filler episode at all. They all flowed nicely and built properly. It didn't feel like, the finale was here and then it was a filler episode. It was like, the main thing happened in episode 12, but then they were setting up like the second season and the fallout from what happened the episode before. It didn't feel formulaic. It all felt natural. I was invested in every episode and was waiting for the next episode, to just flow in. And it just kept me engaged as a viewer, where I feel like some of the other seasons towards that, that 6 to 13, episode, 6 to episode 13, you can have maybe 2 episodes in there, 3 episodes in there where they kind of feel a little fillerish just to stretch it to hit that 13, where I felt like they needed 13 episodes to tell Frank Castle's story properly. And it felt like it was at the end of the day, at the end of the last episode, it felt like a fully cohesive story with a very fulfilling ending to it. And it had a perfect ending. They stuck the landing on this, where I feel like that for some of the other shows have been their biggest failing, is that they didn't stick the landing. And I felt like they did a really good job with sticking the landing and setting up things to come in the future. Another thing that was a standout was Ben Barnes. I was trying to remember who this kid was. It's like, he looks familiar. I looked it up. He was Prince Caspian in the Narnia movies, the later Narnia movies. I think he played Prince Caspian like twice. I think the last 2 that they did, and I was like, wow, he's really grown up, and he did a wonderful job as playing Billy Russo, which we later know from the comics turns out to be Jigsaw, and they kind of set that up perfectly by the end. Just very charismatic in the role. I think the one thing I could say about this was his turn, or him being the villain, was so transparent. It was just like, I sat there just waiting for his turn, or the reveal of him being the villain to drop. It was like waiting for the shoe to drop, or wait for paint to dry. Like I knew from the first time I saw him that he was the villain. It just rung out to me that it's like, yeah, he's vain. He has the makings of a villain. And I'm not too familiar with Jigsaw, so like I Wikipedia'd it, like he has to be like the villain, and I was like, oh, that's Jigsaw's, alter ego or what have you. So I looked up, so okay, so so I knew it was like he read as villain from moment 1 on screen. It's like he's too good to be true. Anybody too good to be true, it's got to be dirty at some point, and he was majorly dirty. Now, his turn was handled nicely, but I felt like you always felt like it was some dirt underneath his nails, too, whereas I feel like the introduction of Wilson Fisk in Daredevil Season 1 was very nuanced in how it was portrayed. You really see Wilson lose his temper and go off, and I can't remember what episode it was in Season 1 of Daredevil, but when the dude fails him and he smashes his head in the car door, like he just snaps. Like, you could feel like in his mind, in the moves he was doing, that he's really a good guy that just does what needs to be done for the betterment of the city in a way, or at least in his mind, that's how he's portrayed. So you're conflicted as a viewer on if he's bad or if he's good. To that moment, he totally snaps and he just crushes that guy's head. You know what I'm saying? Here is like, you're a bad guy. You're a bad guy. Waiting for it. So telegraphed. It was like ridiculous. So I wish that could have been a little bit more nuanced in the writing, but I feel like overall, they nailed another villain in the the Netflix series. They're batting like 1,000. Copperhead. I thought Copperhead was cool. You know what I mean? Cottonmouth was awesome. I thought Copperhead was kind of cool for Luke Cage. Maybe he was the weakest out of. Then we had the whole Iron Fist situation. They're batting like 300. They're not batting 1,000. They're batting like, I'll say batting like 400 or 500. You know what I mean? They're doing all right with the villains. Way better than the movies are. How about that? Now, one other thing that I didn't care for, I understood the reasoning for the storyline. The whole Lewis Walcott storyline, to me, had too much time paid to it for the amount of payoff that we got from it. I liked it. I understood what they were saying about, vets coming back, and I felt like that was needed. I guess maybe the timing or the attention paid to it could have been tweaked slightly, because I just thought it was going to be more than what it was, and I was kind of disappointed when I finally got the end results of it. It didn't fall flat, but I wasn't emotionally invested in that storyline as I was everything else that was going on in the show. It was the one thing that was a little okay. I never connected with Lewis the way that I connected with all the other characters, for sure. So I felt like it wasn't a misstep. It just, certain times I feel like you'll try stuff in different medium. And we went around this in comics, that a writer might have a good idea in their head where they want it to go, but it just doesn't land the same way. For other people, it might register differently. For me, it was the part I cared for least in the whole universe of the Punisher that we got in this first season was Lewis' storyline, and he got a lot of screen time, which I felt like could have gone to other characters that we did care about and flesh them out even more. I feel like they could have did that for the payoff. They could have did that probably with a third less screen time to Lewis for the payoff we got. Because I really thought, like, wait, is he going to be like the main villain? Who does he evolve into or potentially turn into? And when that kind of never happened, it was just like, oh, he was a war-torn vet, PTSD, and he ended up just, killing himself or whatever. It was impactful, but like I said, it wasn't emotional. I didn't have an emotional response to it. I was just like, oh, that's where they decided to go with it. So it's neither here nor there at the end of the day. Now, to give my grade for the show, I highly recommend this show. I give it a 10 out of 10. A must watch for me. Like I said earlier, I feel like it's the best show that they've done since Daredevil season 1 for me. So if I have to rank the Marvel Netflix shows at this point from top to bottom, I say still at the bottom is Iron Fist season 1. Then we have The Defenders season 1 behind that. Then we have Daredevil season 2. Then slightly ahead of Daredevil season 2, I have Jessica Jones season 1. Then I have Luke Cage season 1. And then again, Daredevil season 1 and Punisher right there at the top. So those two are pretty much tied for my number 1 at this point. They're both phenomenal shows. So those are definitely at this point for me the two cream of the crop of the Netflix series, Punisher season 1 as well as Daredevil season 1. Just really well done. And I can't wait to see where they go in the second season of the show. We don't know what the future of these shows are going to be. We know by the end of 2018, early 2019, that all the content, Marvel, Disney related content, is going to be pulled off of Netflix, and Disney starting up their own streaming service. So I don't know before that time will we get a Daredevil season 2, or if it is shot, it just might not. We might not get it in 2018. They're punching out these shows super fast right now. We might not see a Punisher season 2 until 2019, because I know, far as the slate is looking at this point, I know that Daredevil season 3 is being started production. I know Luke Cage season 2 just finished. So more than likely in 2018 we're gonna get season 3 of Daredevil, season 2 of Jessica Jones, season 2 of Luke Cage, and potentially season 2 of Iron Fist, or what we potentially will get in 2018, which then leaves Defenders and Punisher coming maybe as launch shows for the Disney streaming service in 2019, very early 2019. it remains to be seen. It'll be interesting as the year, closing out this year and going into 2018, how that sees, how they see fit with the production. But they're punching them out like one after another, and they're keeping it pretty closed mouth. I think I saw something online where there's like, I didn't even know they were filming Luke Cage season 2, and I think maybe Jessica Jones season 2 is already in the can because they were overlapping recording. Punisher was recording or was finishing recording when they were doing Defenders actually, and then I think they went right into Jessica Jones. And then they did Luke Cage, and then Daredevil, in there. So they're punching them out. They're not playing with the production, and so we definitely will be getting tons more shows. But again, I am skeptical that we will see a Punisher season 2 in 2018, just because of the other shows in front of it that they have to do. But like I said, I think probably early 2019 is the best bet, and I think I can wait, for it, and it'll be interesting. We still have to see how it shapes out, what this new Disney streaming service is going to be, and we know little to nothing. They're being tight-lipped about it at this point. They've talked very briefly about some of the content that they're going to be doing on the streaming service. We don't know like price, availability, all that kind of stuff anywhere at this point. So, it definitely remains to be seen how that'll shape out. And I hope it doesn't negatively affect any of the Netflix shows, because I really like them, and I hope they keep them, they're mature. So I hope all that stays the case and going as they move over to whatever the Disney streaming service will be named and whatever it's going to be. But that's all I have for you guys. Like I said, for this was just focused on the Punisher. If you guys haven't checked it out, I've really been pushing out content for you guys, not just here on the podcast, but I can't say it further. The YouTube channel is going. I am putting content out continuously. I just dropped this past weekend, I dropped a 2017 holiday shopping guide for the comics fan in your life or for yourself. It's about a 14-minute video of some suggestions I have for holiday shopping for the comic geek fan. So you definitely want to go over to the YouTube channel, or like I said, just go over to comicbooksavant.com. If you ever want to look for any content that I do, definitely you can always go there first. But the YouTube channel is youtube.com/comicbooksavant. And videos I'm doing at least one video a week. I'm pushing to try to do more content on YouTube going in the future. The goal was to get it launched. I got it launched, and I've exceeded my own expectations. I try to go into every year of doing the show with setting some goals for myself and trying to tick those off one by one. And I continue to try to grow the show. Now I want to expand my horizons more and raise the quality up, more and more. With that being said, I want to take time out to just mention my Patreon page. It is patreon.com/comicbooksavant. It's basically crowdfunding. If you listen to the content or watch the YouTube videos and you like the content I create and you have the means, not everyone has the financial means to support the show, but if you like the content and you spend the time and you can even spare $1 a month, as little as $1 a month to get you the gateway into exclusive content. You get shout outs as producers for episodes, and I'm looking to create more content, but I don't really have any Patreons at this point. And it's mega important, and I've learned this as being a fan of other content, and I've supported and have and continue to support different Patreons over the years for content that I'm a fan of. If you want that to continue and see it grow and evolve, it needs support from the listeners. Like I said, it can be as little as $1 a month. Or if that's too much or too much a long-term commitment, on comicbooksavant.com, I have where you can do one-time donations through a direct PayPal me link, and all that goes back into the show. I need upgraded equipment, software, things of that nature. I'm really trying to take it to another level. I want to do interviews, I want to do, have more complex graphics and custom music, those kind of things. And they, unfortunately, they cost. I have, the one sponsor in Stock Trades, and I really need your guys' support to continue to grow the show. There's only so much I can do on my end as one person. How they say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a community to grow something along this line. I think of you guys as community and as family, and so to keep this going strong for years to come, I'm not trying to slow down. I think it's funny, as trying to do more YouTube and doing video content, be in front of the camera, it just has re-energized me and reinvigorated me more. That, it amazes me at some points when I look back over the years, and, I'm, 11 and a half, getting to the point of being close to like 11 and a half years into doing a podcast, that I still haven't ran out of things to talk about. And the comic book industry has changed and evolved so much. So it's so much even more to talk about. I don't cover every single thing in the comic book industry. I try my best to cover what I do cover to the best of my ability, but I need your help to continue that. So if you have a moment to do that, please do. I really would appreciate it. Also, definitely share the content, send links out, the stuff that you guys have been doing. If you could also leave iTunes reviews, that helps. All those things that I ask you to do just helps to get more eyes on the content. If you like it and you think someone that you know or you're friends with are interested in the comics or comic book movies or TV shows, the things that I talk about if you listen to the show. So if you think someone might like it, share a link, send them over to comicbooksavant.com, and just share that out. All those things, like I said, help and has helped grow the show, and I want to continue to do that in the future. I want 2018 to be the biggest year of this podcast ever, and I think we can do it, but I need your help to do it. So if you're down with me, let me know. Again, you can follow me on social media at Comic Book Savant at Twitter and on Instagram. I'm more active on Instagram because it's just easier for me. It's a Facebook page for the group as well, facebook.com, Comic Book Savant. I'm all over the place, so I'm easy to find. Thank you guys for listening. This is Comic Book Savant signing out until next week, and I'll see you again next week for another episode. Take care. And it'll be I meant to say this. The Punisher non-spoiler review video is going to be out now. So if you're listening to this and you want to pass that, if you know someone that's on the fence that might want to check out the show and haven't watched it yet, send them over to the YouTube link or to the website for the non-spoiler review for Punisher. And I think next week on the YouTube channel, because I'm doing television reviews on more so on the YouTube channel now, I'm going to do a review of the CW crossover event, Crisis on Earth X. That'll be coming up next week on the YouTube channel. This week will be the non-spoiler version of the Punisher review. So again, with all that being said, I'll see you guys next week for another episode. Take care and have a good week.
And into lyrical wholeness. And I know this, and I know this. This I know, this I know.